Hello everyone. Today I decided to draw a character that is kind of in conversation or like in mid-conversation talking to another friend about life's big questions. And this drawing is about those pivotal moments of self-reflection, kind of like those conversations where you're sitting with a trusted friend and is vulnerable and raw. You're asking kind of questions like, am I doing this life thing right? I guess most of us have been there, the feeling of uncertainty, questioning our choices, wondering if we're truly on the path meant for us. The beauty is in that vulnerability, the vulnerability of admitting that we don't have all the answers. So that's what this little drawing or this sketch was inspired by. And for this pencil sketch, I decided to use just a simple HB pencil. Actually, lately I've not really been sketching with HB. I've been using more softer pencils, which have a dark pigment to them, like the, the 4B or the 6B pencils, where like the B indicates the softness, and then the numbers like the 6, 7, or 8 represents like the darkness. And I like those soft pencils, but the issue is that it's difficult to erase it, if you try to erase it, the marks are still there. So that's why I use HB. And another thing I noticed with the darker pencils is that they require a lot of sharpening, like they keep becoming dull more quickly. But yeah, so I just decided to use HB. So for this character, I would say the hardest thing to draw on the face was the mouth, because this character is like kind of speaking. So their mouth is kind of open, and it was kind of difficult to capture that shape where there's kind of a gap between the upper lip and the bottom lip. But I think I eventually got the right shape after some trial and error. I like to think of this character like the photographer was there, took this picture, kind of like a candid photo. I just love candid photography. And I added wrinkles on the pants because it's like a looser fitting pant that this character is wearing. And here is where I start adding ink to the illustration. I noticed that in a lot of the frames, my hand is actually blocking the drawing, which is something that I need to be aware of more when I am drawing in future videos. But here I'm using a brush pen actually. It actually has a dual tip, so one side has the brush, which I'm using right now, and then on the other side is like a finer tip, kind of like those Sharpie fine liners. And so what I like to do is on the outer edges of the character, I like using thicker lines. So that would be with the brush pen. Then on the smaller details, like maybe the wrinkles or the wrinkles off the jacket, or maybe smaller things like necklaces or bracelets, I would use with the fine liner. But I just love the brush pen. I think it's one of my favorite mediums to use because of the variety in lines that you can achieve with just one tool. And here, actually, the shoes, you can actually see the bottom of the shoes, which I thought was really interesting because mostly when I'm drawing characters, a lot of them are standing usually, so you don't really see the bottom of the shoe unless, they're jumping or maybe kicking something. So I thought that was something that was interesting. Here I'm just filling in the shadows, the shirt with that brush pen, which is really great in filling in different kinds of shapes. And with like other brush nibs, such as like a chisel nib, it's a lot more challenging to do that. But here I think I'm wrapping up the inking and I'm moving on to the background. For the background, what I usually do is I just add like a square or rectangle behind the character that I'm drawing. I just color that in and leave it very simple. This one, I decided to draw some like speech bubbles and some other elements. So for like the speech bubble, the main one is she's saying like, am I on the right path? And on the bottom, I think it says, where do I go from here? So just, those life questions. I wanted to capture that. And I added a little emoji of like a thinking emoji because I think emojis are so cute. I did add her friend that she's talking to right on the right side, even though the main character's looking on the left. I added that character on the right. I decided to add very light lines or thinner lines for her friend because I wanted the main focus to be on obviously the character, right? At the bottom right on the page, I drew a map because I was thinking, since we're talking about the life journey, life path, that just made me think about, I'm trying to figure out your direction in life, and you generally, when you're trying to find your direction or where you are, use a map. So I thought that element could go with this theme. And I believe I do add some street names to the streets, like Main Street, 7th Avenue, just to add more interest to that component of the page. Yeah. But generally, for backgrounds, I really keep it minimal and just draw one square, one rectangle, fill it in with one color. And I love using pastels. Oh, here I am actually inking all the text. Sometimes what I like to do is I draw guidelines for each line of text, so I know like how big each character or each letter should be, like what height it should be. For this one, I kind of just winged it because I like the messier look, so it doesn't look like it's typed, and it's like too perfect. I kind of want that roughness or that kind of spontaneousness, if that's a word. I think there's something beautiful in that. I also really just like the journal look of sketchbook pages, where there's a mixture between art and a little bit of text or like quotes, just different kind of musings scribbled on the page here and there. So here on the map, I decided to thicken up some of the lines, like on the right side of each shape. just to add more interest or more intrigue to the map. And then here's that friend I drew, using mostly thinner lines. I can't speak today. I think this is going to wrap up the inking part of the drawing, I believe. And here is where I bring out the paints. What I'm using here is acrylic paint. And the paper that I'm actually painting on is of kind of thinner paper. I wouldn't say it's too thin. It's around, I want to say it's like around 80 GSM or 100. But the thing with this notebook or the sketchbook that I'm using is that it has an elastic closure. So whenever I close it with that closure, it really compresses the pages. So when I open it again, all the pages are kind of flattened, so it irons out all the wrinkles, which I like. I like having all the pages flat. It's just a personal preference. I mean, there's beauty in a sketchbook that is all flat pages, and then one that is very chunky or where all the pages are wrinkled and it looks really used. I love that style too. So I decided to use a lavender color, like a pastel color for the background. I just love pastels. I have like a set of 12 tubes of like miniature tubes of acrylic paint. So this was a mix between, I would say, crimson, red, and I think ultra blue or submarine blue or something like that. But most of the paint is actually just white. Like I just dumped a lot of white in there. The shade I think is titanium white. So that one I actually bought like a larger tube of that because mostly I'm working with pastel colors. So that's just what I need. And I colored the background as lavender and some portions of the map as well, I think. And on the side there, on the right side, is my palette that I used to mix all the different colors. Since the camera is so zoomed in, the palette kind of got cut off, but I just mix all the colors there and use this brush. And on the left side of my journal, you can see that there's like a lot of paper sticking out, and that's because I kind of use this book as a journal, so and a sketchbook. So the paper there, the wax paper, is for actually covering up some of the sketches I did in pencil so that they don't smudge when the book is closed. And on the left page you can kind of see like some of my bullet journal calendar spreads peeking through because I do use it also for a bullet journal kind of thing. Here I'm using a pink paint that I mixed for the hair, which is kind of hard to tell from the purple. I wish there was more contrast. And for the pants I wanted to use like a green color, but when I added white to that hunter green color, it became like a toothpaste, like a mint toothpaste color, which I didn't like. So what I did was I added some of the extra lavender paint that I had, and the pink, which then created this kind of beautiful blue turquoise color, which I really liked. I think because the blues from the lavender got added to that green, so it turned into this color, which I think works really well. It's very cohesive with the overall illustration. And yeah, this is the completed illustration. Thank you all so much for watching.